Chapter 2507. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. He had heard of slaying God's method of completing missions and that ordinary people could not even see her shadow. Initially, Bernie thought that he would be able to face slaying God head-on after so much planning. Even if he could not defeat her, he would at least be able to hold her back for 10 minutes. What Bernie did not expect was that he would be utterly defeated by slaying God. Forget 10 minutes, it was not even a second. He could not even see slaying God's shadow. When his underling shouted, "Slaying God is here," Bernie did not even have the time to check before dashing out. Moreover, unless slaying God had really descended from the sky. Otherwise, no matter how powerful she was, she could only attack from outside the door. That was also the reason why Bernie, the captain of the International Police Force, fell for her trick. Not only was slaying God powerful, but she also knew how to read people's minds. From the moment she created the illusion that she had snuck in from outside, she had already guessed that Bernie would definitely dash out of the house based on his personality. "Did you see slaying God just now?" Bernie raised his voice and looked at his niece Beryl and the director, who were huddled on the ground in fear. "And no, I didn't see them. Tionkle and the rest died suddenly. It was just a blink of an eye. When I opened my eyes, they were dead. They were dead." Sob? Beryl hugged her body tightly in fear as she shuddered. There was a hint of sobbing in her voice. She was so frightened that she had lost all feeling in her body. "What about this flying dagger? Where did it come from?" Belle asked before Beryl could finish her sobbing. "I saw it. The staircase. It came from upstairs." The director pointed at the top of the stairs with a trembling finger. Using all the strength he had left in his life, he uttered the words that scared him out of his wits. "The staircase, upstairs, in the sky, in the sky. She came from the sky." Bernie was suddenly enlightened. He held his pistol and rushed out of the villa, only to see the girl in the sky holding the rope hanging from the helicopter with one hand. He couldn't see her face clearly because she was wearing a pair of sunglasses. Grabbing the rope that hung down from the helicopter with one hand, Yunjian, who was hoisted higher, was not at all afraid. With a touch of her red lips, she flashed a taunting grin at Bernie. In the next second, he grabbed the rope with his other hand and quickly climbed from the bottom of the rope to the top of the rope. With a simple somersault, the helicopter was already a few hundred meters above the ground. He took advantage of the momentum and somersaulted into the helicopter. Chapter 2508. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. It had been 15 or 16 days since the first day of the new year, and since that incident had happened. It was time for the students to return to school. There were more than 10 universities in Jiangqing University City. The university students here generally started school early. Jiangqing City of Zhe Province paid more attention to academics, so the school started school early. The winter and summer holidays were very late. Of course, this was not a good thing for the students. At that time, Mo Bufan led a group of people into the coffee shop as if they were going to fight. They surrounded Yunjian. Yunjian held a cup of coffee in her hand and tasted it carefully. She did not turn to look at Mo Bufan and the others. "How was last year's martial arts competition?" she asked casually. Yunjian had taken a leave of absence a year ago. At that time, the martial arts club was about to hold a martial arts competition. Before leaving, Yunjian had trained Mo Bufan and the other members of the martial arts club. Of course, it was a complete victory. "President, you don't know, but after our martial arts club won a complete victory last year, we represented all the universities in Jiangqing City and participated in the provincial martial arts competition. We also got into the top 3. If nothing goes wrong, the school will arrange for us to represent Zhe Province in the national competition in the next few days. Since you're back, President, you should participate with us." Before Mo Bufan could speak, Zhou Huntao spoke first from Yunjian. "I won't participate." Yunjian pursed her red lips. After speaking, Yunjian handed an invitation to Mo Bufan and the others one by one. Then she stood up and said to them, "On April 1st, I will hold an engagement party at Hubble Island. There will be a car to pick you up. This is the invitation." This invitation was made recently. Yunjian had already sent out invitations to many people. The 1st of April was Yunjian's birthday. It could be translated as CE without the intonation. Perhaps it was fate for her to be with CE. "Yes, President. An engagement party at Hubble Island." Hubble Island was voted as the world's sexiest beach by Country M's Newsweek. Along the beach, there was a luxurious resort consisting of 25 colorful villas. And Hubble Island is most famous for its pink beach. Other beaches are yellow, but Hubble Island's beach is pink. It's made of real pink sand. This is King romantic, Zhou Huntao said to Yun Jian with admiration. Yun Jian pursed her lips and said to them, "Remember, on the night of March 31st, there will be a special car to take you to Hubble Island." Even if he forgot to take a dump, he would not miss such a good opportunity. A free vacation on Hubble Island, haha. Zhou Huntao laughed wretchedly. "Alright, wipe your saliva." As an educated young master, Mo Bufan couldn't stand it any longer. He took a tissue and handed it to Zhou Huntao. Hearing this, the rest of the martial arts clubs burst into laughter. It was almost the middle of February, and there was still about a month and a half before the engagement party. Less than a week after Zhou Huntao invited Yun Jian to participate in the national martial arts competition with them, the school sent a notice to Zhou Huntao, Mo Bufan, and the others to pack their luggage overnight and rush to the national martial arts competition. Because they were notified in advance, they were not in a hurry. Although Yun Jian did not participate, she was invited by Mo Bufan and the others to watch the competition. This time, the venue of the competition was in Liao Province. Liao Province was not close to Zhe Province, so they took a train for nearly 20 hours to get there. The winter in Liao Province was much colder than Zhe Province. That was the north, so it was naturally incomparable to the south of Zhe Province. After arriving at the venue of the competition in Liao Province, Mo Bufan and the others planned to familiarize themselves with the competition venue. It's the people from the shrine, hey. Just after Mo Bufan and the others arrived, a group of members who also carried the signboard of the martial arts club walked over from the opposite side and greeted Mo Bufan and the others. This group of people was also from a martial arts club. They were the martial arts clubs sent by Zhe Province to participate in the National Martial Arts Club. Other than the martial arts club formed by Mo Bufan and his group, who were in the top 3 of the provincial competition, the other martial arts clubs formed by the top 3 of the provincial competition. Shrine was the name that Yun Jian came up with for the club. This group of people was the second-place martial arts club in the provincial competition, the Combat Society. The captain of the Combat Society was a chubby man named Diao Xiaozhan. Diao Xiaozhan's nickname was very interesting. His companions all called him Principal Diao. It could be understood as running around with the principal in his mouth. At that time, Diao Xiaozhan walked over and high-fived Mo Bufan. He glanced around and saw Yun Jian, who had not appeared in the previous competition. He asked Mo Bufan in surprise, "Mo Bufan, is this your little girlfriend?" After Mo Bufan heard this, he quickly shook his head and then said something that shocked Diao Xiaozhan and the others. "She's the one I told you about, the strongest president of our martial arts club. Top reading website, M." She was very honest and friendly. Her looks weren't bad either. Although she wasn't a peerless beauty, she was still pleasing to the eye. The president of the Crayfish Society is called Long Xinyan. I heard that she likes to eat crayfish very much, so she named the society this way. The people in her society don't like to talk to people. Mo Bufan explained to Yun Jian. Yun Jian had never participated in the competition before, so she naturally didn't know anything. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. 10 minutes later, all the martial arts clubs were gathered here. "They're here, the judges are here," someone shouted. At this time, a few judges who were dressed very conspicuously entered the venue. The competition wasn't going to be held immediately today, so the judges were here to familiarize themselves. At this time, a few judges entered the venue. When she saw a foreign woman in her 20s, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. This was none other than the niece of the previous Interpol team's captain, Bernie Beryl. However, Yun Jian wasn't surprised. This was because Bernie's niece was learning martial arts from Z country. Yun Jian had seen a brief introduction of Beryl in Bernie's detailed information. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The moment Beryl entered, Long Xinyan, the president of the Lobster Society, suddenly raised her voice smugly and spoke to her companions in a boastful tone, flaunting her knowledge. "Did you see that? That judge is the niece of the Interpol team's captain. My parents even brought me to her house as a guest before. That's why she knew so much. Did you know that during this period of time, there's a huge uproar about slaying God, the #1 on the international secret agent ranking, returning to the secret agent circle?" The first mission she carried out after returning was related to Beryl. Beryl, that's someone who has seen the true face of the #1 on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. Chapter 25:14. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Long Xinyan was so frightened by Yun Jian's silent words that her upper body trembled violently. She sat on the bench and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Long Xinyan managed to stabilize herself in the end. Otherwise she would have fallen to the ground. Xinyan, what's wrong? A girl sitting beside Long Xinyan asked when she saw Long Xinyan's body trembling violently as if she was threatened. Long Xinyan seemed to have been called back to her senses. She suddenly came back to her senses and blinked her eyes in a daze. She turned around and saw Yun Jian sitting next to Long Xinyan's table. She was wearing a pair of disposable gloves and peeling the crayfish as if nothing had happened. Even the warning Yun Jian said to her did not seem to have happened. Long Xinyan felt a chill run down her spine. She swallowed a mouthful of crayfish. Her favorite crayfish was now tasteless. Too scary, this woman is too scary. Long Xinyan did not dare to think about Yun Jian anymore. She closed her eyes and did not dare to say anything about what had just happened. Obviously, no one saw Yun Jian's silent warning to Long Xinyan. Diao Xiaozhan was eating the crayfish in big bites while giving Yun Jian a thumbs up. You're indeed the president of the shrine. You're amazing. I saw that if you had led your shrine to participate in the provincial tournament last year, then your shrine would have won first place in the provincial tournament. I heard that you can add people to the tournament before it starts. President of the shrine, why don't you bring your club to the tournament as well? I reckon that with the 2 moves you just showed, you can easily take the top 3 places in the national martial arts competition. Diao Xiaozhan was speaking the truth. That's right. Why didn't you take part in the tournament? Someone from the War Society said after hearing Diao Xiaozhan's words. You felt sorry for Yun Jian. Facing the Combat Society member's question, Yun Jian pressed her lips together without saying a word. Seeing that Yun Jian did not say anything, Diao Xiaozhan and the others were very smart and did not press her. It was a frightening farce. Although no one said anything, their hearts were still unable to recover from the shock for a long time. That baby shop was indeed worth a visit. It was different from other baby shops. Whether it was the baby toys or the clothes that the baby wore, they were all designed by the shop owner. The 2 little ones would definitely like it. When she returned to her place at night, Shinji, who had been appearing and disappearing mysteriously, called her. Hey, I didn't expect the call to go through. You actually returned to the agent circle and signed a new contract with the website. 006. Do you know that after you came back, the base price of my mission dropped from $50 million to $30 million? Tell me, how are you going to calculate the missing $20 million? Shinji scolded Yun Jian angrily as soon as the call connected. Yun Jian's lips curved slightly. She spun the phone in her hand and said, Then what do you want? Fight me to your heart's content. I've developed a few new moves recently. 006. Believe it or not, I'll definitely surpass you this time. It had been so many years. Back when Shinji, Mad Dragon, and Slaying God left in Hun, Shinji had not given up on his dream of surpassing Yun Jian. He kept mentioning it. Yun Jian smiled faintly when she heard Shinji's words. She said, Deal. I'll wait for you at the entrance of the World Martial Arts Competition Arena in Country Z's Liao Province at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. The loser will treat us. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 25:15. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, Shinji hung up with a beep. Yun Jian knew Shinji's personality. Based on her personality, she should have left all the internal and external forces of the Soul Eater organization and rushed over from abroad. After all, to Shinji, defeating Yun Jian and surpassing Yun Jian's achievements was her only dream. Yun Jian tossed her phone on the bed and stood up to stretch before heading to the bathroom for a shower. She had called Shinji to Liao Province for no other reason than to get her to spend $1 million. They had been rivals for so many years. It was only right for Shinji to treat her to a meal. Reality proved that Yun Jian knew Shinji very well. Shinji hung up the phone and rushed to Liao Province without even putting on his clothes properly. Shinji was Yun Jian's rival. The 2 of them had known each other since they joined the Inhun organization. This was different from the friendship between Yun Jian and Mu Ying in Inhun. Yun Jian had never treated Shinji as a friend. The 2 of them were rivals who competed against each other. However, after so many years, the 2 of them had gone from being insignificant dust particles who could die at any time when they first joined Inhun organization to being the top figures in the international scene. The only thing that didn't change was that they still treated each other as rivals. This was a completely different way of getting along with Yunjian, Snake, Lizard, Qingyu and Lansu. Chapter 25:38. Qingyu and Lansu translator listened to Yunjian's orders. Translation editor. Shenji, on the other hand, only treated Yunjian as her rival. Endless Fantasy Translation editor. The two of them could climb to this translation. There was no despair against each other, only more despair. The next day, the group of women national martial arts competition would be broadcasted to the world at 6 in the evening. Some of them had witnessed their husbands being killed by the N-Nation people a few months ago. Woke up early. Their families were all killed. She went to the nearby gym with them staying in a country where the law was not for the whole morning before heading to the arena at noon. Between men and women, the men were killed and the others were rehearsing for the competition. As for the women, after experiencing physical despair, they were torturing them pointers from time to time. There were some courageous women who had committed suicide long before they were humiliated because of the rehearsal. When Yunjian arrived at the scene, this was and went outside to buy the mineral water. The disobedient woman who was stabbed to death by the N-Nation person groaned and died with her eyes wide open. After buying a pack of water, Yunjian habitually handed the shop's Shinji to the shop owner. How dare you stare at me? The owner had been waiting for Yunjian to give him change, but was surprised to receive a N-Nation person did not like the dead woman. This is a small business. He panicked, but he stabbed the woman's eyeball with the blade and gouged it out. There were very few places where cards. You could never imagine what kind of cruel things a citizen of a country without law could do. The dozens of women at the scene were suffering a fate worse than death. Some of them were even tied up and could not even commit suicide. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. At this moment she was standing at the top of the roof looking forward. In her hands, there were two butterfly knives that gleamed with the light of the sword. Yunjian did not think that Lu Yinue would help. So she held the butterfly knives and found the target. He was also riding on a woman like the N-Nation people. Just as she was about to attack, someone is invading from the west. Requesting backup. Requesting backup. A loud voice was heard. However, a man from country N rushed in and shouted loudly. Hearing this, the N-Nation people around quickly put on their clothes and ran out. Only the leader was still riding on a woman and was in the final sprint. The rest of the women were all lying on the ground as if they were paralyzed. They had lost all hope of survival. Roar. The leader was as fat as a pig. He rammed into a woman and was in the final sprint. Just as the leader was about to end this wave of ramming, he suddenly heard a cold voice behind him. Are you ready to pay for what you've done? The sudden voice stunned the leader. He turned around like a robot. He thought it was the woman lying on the ground who wanted to attack him. Just as he was about to shout for the rest of his men to protect him, he saw an unfamiliar face. Yunjian's slender figure was wrapped in a tight black shirt and pants. The butterfly knives on both her hands were facing down with fresh blood dripping from the blades. Her nonchalant expression made her look like a killer. From then on, Mad Dragon swore that he would grow up and become strong enough to protect her. But Muing still died. From then on, Mad Dragon was completely useless and became a killing machine. He began to kill endlessly. Until he met Muing again. It could be said that to Mad Dragon, Muing was his spiritual support. Without her, his existence had no meaning. So when he heard that Muing was going to leave him, Mad Dragon completely lost control. Mad Dragon only let go of Muing when she was about to pass out. He blinked his sharp eyes fiercely. In the next second he threw Muing onto the bed and pressed himself on top of her. Since you've chosen to die, I'll let you experience what it's like to be a woman before you die. Come. Wonderful book house. The reinforcements from Country N who had rushed over were unable to catch up with the hundreds of refugees who were about to escape from Country N. However, if more than 10 cannons were to bombard them simultaneously, the refugees would still die. Oh no. Everyone run. Run. Don't look back. Zhang Hang had already realized that something was wrong. With more than a dozen cannons firing at the same time, even if Yunjian was there, she wouldn't be able to buy them the last minute to escape. Because Yunjian was all alone. No matter how fast one could use a sniper rifle and aim accurately, the sniper rifle still needed to be reloaded. After sniping the more than 10 N-Nation people who were operating the cannons, there would still be more people to fill in. Unless Yunjian had 3 heads and 6 arms, or a machine gun that could fire hundreds of bullets in succession, the refugees would all die on the spot. Was over. Other than the refugees, the special forces who were covering the rear all realized that this was a hopeless situation. However, they still followed the plan that they had previously agreed on. Not a single one of them fled at the last minute for their own sake. It was a pity that they didn't have the time to return to the embrace of their motherland and say goodbye to their family and friends. Just as all the special forces and the female military doctor, Zhang Meili, Wang Shuefei, and the others who were hiding in the mountains a few hundred meters away from here and didn't leave Country N with them all thought so, more than 10 N nation people had already stepped forward, intending to operate the cannons to give the refugees and the special forces, who were covering them, the final blow. Tut 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 tut. Just as everyone realized that it was hopeless, a series of sniper gunshots rang out one after another. The moment the gunshots rang out, the N nation people who were about to step forward to open fire were killed one after another. Everyone suddenly widened their eyes in horror. One had to know that Yun Jian was only holding a sniper rifle. A sniper rifle could only shoot in bursts and couldn't fire bullets in succession. However, the bullets fired from the sniper rifle were like a machine gun's continuous firing. Just as everyone turned their heads to look in surprise as they ran, they saw Yun Jian in the distance holding more than 10 sniper rifles that she had taken from Zhang Hang. She didn't even focus on the sniper spot. She carried both sniper rifles with both hands and killed the N nation people who were about to step forward to open fire with one shot. Every lift and shot was accurate. After firing a few rounds of the sniper rifle, she picked up the other one. Her movements were so fast that there were no flaws. She used the sniper rifle's bursts to unleash the continuous firing of a machine gun. Who else in this world could do that? She was probably the best person in the world to use a gun.